Come with me today as I explore Arizona's Mogollon Rim country, where I find ancient ruins, natural pigments, and then come home and show you how to turn that into natural paint. Hey guys, today I'm at Bailey Ruin, which is just above the Mogollon Rim in central Arizona. There's a lot of archaeological evidence that points to this as the birthplace of Salado polychrome, the place where that type of pottery was invented in about 1275. So I'm going to be looking around here a little bit at some of the ruins, but mostly I'm going to be concentrating on the surrounding area, looking for pigments, that is white clay and red hematite. So come with me as I go looking for that, and I'll show you what I find. There's a lot of coal out here. There's a big area full of coal right there. That hill, that dark in the middle of that hill is mostly lignite, coal. And then here among it is a lot of this yellow stone, this limonite material. You can see here I've been digging. So there's a fair amount of good limonite here. I'm going to collect a little bit of it. Just the brighter bits. That's why I'm kind of searching around, because there's all different shades of yellow and orange here. I'm just looking for the one with the higher iron content. Got a fair deal there. It's a good amount. That's a lot for paint, because a little bit of mineral goes a long way for paint. Let me show you what I found here. I don't know if this is clay or not, but you can see here we've got crackled texture. You see the cracks in this here where it expanded when it was wet and then contracted when it was dry. We've got a white color material among this that is so bright it's literally like making my eyes water, like kind of like sun blind right now, snow blind. Whew, bad. And when I dug down into it here, you've got these kind of shale type layers. You see the way it breaks up? That's the way like old clay or shale breaks. I don't know. There's definitely some clay in it. There's no way to know, you know, what I'm going to get out of it until I try it. So I'm going to take a Ziploc bag of this stuff home. I don't know. See, this is that layer. There's the crackles were right on the top of that layer, and then I broke into it and you got that kind of shaly material. So I'll take a bag of it home and see what I can get. It's worth experimenting with. Sure is pretty country. Look at the iron content in these rocks. Lots of yellows, and there's a few good reds too. If you just spend a day kind of on your hands and knees climbing around through here, you could have a whole lot of really great paint rocks. This is kind of like Antelope Mesa here. All the materials you need to make polychrome pottery is right here. There's good clay, good gray clays here. There's good hematite and limonite for paints. There's light colored clays for slips. And there's that coal right there, which makes, of course, the ultimate thing for firing pottery with. So this area is made for potters. You can see why some of the finest pottery in the ancient Southwest was made up here on the Mogollon Rim in this area. It really is a potter's dream come true to have all your materials that close by. See that dark layer right there in that hill is a coal seam. It's coal. It's lignite. We've got this crackled texture here. You can dig in and see that there's clay. We've got these angular chunks that it breaks into. And more importantly in here, we've got layers of this. That's not a good example. There's layers of that bright yellow clay, kind of limonite clay in here. I don't know if you can see it from there. Let me grab a good piece to show you. See the color on that? Bright yellow. And that is kind of a clay limonite material. I don't know what to say about it, but it definitely has clay in it. It has that soft kind of waxy texture about it. And there's not really like a thick layer you could just pick out of here, but there's a thin layer, and you could just, if you were collecting it, you could just harvest little bits of it, you know, and throw them in a bag. I don't need any right now, so I'm not taking any of this home. Not what I'm looking for, but that's a good chunk right there. It's got some gray clay attached to it. You can just kind of break off the gray parts, keep only the yellow. If I was harvesting the yellow clay here, I'd have to be really careful and pick out just the yellow bits. Okay, I'm back at home now. I didn't find everything I was looking for. I did find some interesting white clay, as you saw in the video. Or it could be clay, it could be shale, which just means it's been compressed in the earth too long to turn back into clay. I did not find any red hematite. There's a lot of iron in that area though. This rock right here is some kind of iron ore, really heavy, solid, dense, metallic rock, but too hard to grind into paint. So I think some more exploration in that area. There probably are some good hematite sources there. I just didn't run across any in my day out there. So I'm going to take this material, the white that I found, and I'm just going to dump it in this bucket of water. I'm going to let it soak overnight and see if it slakes down into clay or if it stays hard and stony. Like we saw out in the field, there is definitely a clay component to it because the ground was crackling. But the question is, you know, how much of it is really clay and how much of it is maybe stone. It came from clay originally. You can tell that by the texture, but it's been compressed in the earth to the point that it could be hard to turn back into clay. So I'll let that soak overnight and we'll see what we got. Now this is the limonite I got, the Yellowstone, and I'm gonna do the same thing with it. Just gonna soak it overnight and see what we got in the morning. Okay, thanks to a microphone malfunction, I'm going to have to record a voiceover on this, so I apologize for that. These have soaked overnight, and now I'm just reaching my hand in and feeling to see if it's slaked down to clay or if it's still gritty. What I'm finding with this white material is there is a little bit of clay-sized particles in it, and you can see that by that milky liquid that's in the container. Those are very small particles that are suspended in water.
So I believe I can get some clay out of it, but it's mostly gritty. It's mostly feels like gravel to my hands. It doesn't have a slick or a sticky texture at all. So what I'm going to do is, I don't think this is worthwhile to try to turn into clay. I could get some clay out of it, but I'd work really hard for that clay. Now this material over here, the yellow clay, it has a little more of a sticky, slimy, clay-like feeling to it. Although most of those rocks are still rocks in this case. If I had to do this over again, I would grind the yellow and I wouldn't bother with the white. It's just not enough. So what I'm going to do with the yellow is I'm going to pull out all the solid pieces, all the gravel, and then I'm going to levigate what's there so that I can use it for paint. So I'm just going to, with my hands, pull out the solid gravelly pieces of rock and set those aside. And then I'm going to use what's called levigation to refine what's the smaller particles that are there. So to levigate, I just need another container. It's just like passing the material through a fine strainer. I'm letting nature be the strainer. So I stir the particles up, let them become suspended in water. I let it sit for just a little bit, a few seconds, so the larger particles will fall to the bottom, and then pour off those suspended particles. Water is what makes this process work. So as you pour it off, you may have to refill your container a few times. Any sand-sized particle or silt-sized particle is falling to the bottom of that water, while those clay-sized particles are staying suspended momentarily, and I'm pouring them off. And then eventually, when my bucket that I'm pouring into gets full, where it won't hold anymore, then I have to wait and let that settle. Okay, some time has passed and this material has settled. Not 100%, you can tell the water's still yellow, but you can see through it. It's kind of see-through-y. So I'm just gonna pour down to where it's solid. And usually it'll be really obvious when you get there. As long as you pour slowly, you can see when you get to this point where it's the settled material is. And that's just about all my container can hold anyway. So I've got a thin layer of settled material at the bottom. You see that? It's not a lot, but when you're using it for paint, you don't need a whole lot. So I'm gonna, it's hard to get my hand in there to stir that. I guess I'm gonna use this rib bone. It's all I can find. I think if I put my hand in this container, it's gonna overflow. So I need something with less volume than my hand to stir it with. So I'm just stirring it up. It'll get these, the particles, the fine particles suspended in the water. And then pretty quickly, while they're still suspended, pour those off. Now that I poured a little out, I might be able to get my hand in here, stir a little better. Some of these bits have dissolved down so they're kind of soft and I can break them up with my fingers. And then what I'm going to do with the rest of this, all this stony material, is once it's fully dry, I'll grind it a couple times so it's nice and fine, and then I'll levigate that too. And this should all make good paint. And this yellow will come out red in a firing. And that's how I levigate paint. So it's a little bit time consuming, but like I said, you don't really need much. If you're enjoying my channel, hit that subscribe button so you know when the next video comes out. Thanks for coming with me today. We'll catch you next time.